Welcome to the Metal Verbalizers podcast. There are a lot of hardworking musicians and great music in the underground metal. We want to support this, so we started this podcast. We also want to share the great underground music with you listening. If you enjoy this podcast, your support is very important, because the more people who find us, the more we can support the bands that we verbalize. In this episode, I will introduce a band by talking about the band's sound, influences, lyrics, name, future plans, and more. I am Johan Verbalizer, and this episode will be dedicated to the band Tymo. Tymo is a thrash metal band from Canada and was started in 2015. The band started as a solo project by Team Tymo. The reason the band started as a solo project was simply because Tim couldn't find other people who shared his love for thrash metal and shared his vision for what he wanted the band to be like. Eventually he did, however, find people like that, which helped Tymo to evolve into the thrash band it is today. When it comes to the influences, in the beginning, Tymo was very influenced by old school bands such as Megadeth, Slayer, and Exodus, etc. Nowadays, the band is mostly influenced by new wave of thrash metal bands such as Toxic Holocaust, Havoc, and Municipal Waste, etc. Tymo tends to play a pretty fast and aggressive type of thrash metal that I would compare to those influences. However, the band's 2017 album titled Purge and Reset differs quite a bit from the band's latest 2019 album, The Art of a Maniac. I personally think that you can easily hear that Tymo was mainly influenced by old school thrash, like Megadeth and Slayer, when releasing Purge and Reset, and mainly influenced by new wave thrash like Havoc and Municipal Waste when releasing The Art of a Maniac. As per usual, I would strongly recommend that you listen to both, but if you prefer old school thrash, I would probably recommend starting with Purge and Reset, and if you prefer new wave thrash, I would probably recommend starting with The Art of a Maniac. If you like bands such as Havoc, I feel very confident to say that you will definitely enjoy The Art of a Maniac. According to the page Metal Archives, Tymo released an album in 2015 when it was still a solo project, titled The Lone Wolf. However, I can't find this album on Spotify and I can't find it on YouTube either. When searching for it on Google, it seems like it used to be available on Spotify, but was removed for some reason. I'm not sure why. On the other hand, you can hear some of the songs from the Lone Wolf album from recorded videos of older Tymo shows that you can find on YouTube, for example. When it comes to the image of Tymo, they want to make people think when seeing the band's artwork, etc. It's about catching the audience's eyes and making them come a little closer, so to speak. Like Tymo explained it, quote, "We are like ogres. Ogres have layers, onions have layers, and we have layers." End of quote. When it comes to the lyrics of Tymo, they generally deal with subjects regarding internal and external destruction, such as addiction and depression, taking inspiration from things like movies as well as real-life problems. The band has also stated that they will explore more subjects on their upcoming album. The reason why Tim decided to call the band Tymo is simply because he couldn't really come up with a name. So eventually he ended up deciding to use his own surname, Tymo. By the time that Tymo stopped being a solo project and became a 4-member band, the band was already known as Tymo, so it didn't really make any sense changing it at that point, and it would be very difficult doing so. They even tried changing the name actually, but it didn't really work, so eventually they decided to keep Tymo as the band name. But Tim kind of jokingly suggested that maybe you could change his surname instead. When it comes to the future of Tymo, the band is hard at work with their upcoming album. I don't know much about it, unfortunately. I don't know when it is going to be released, and I don't know when this will be announced. On the other hand, the band said that they will enter the studio soon. But you know how soon works. It could mean a lot of things. Tymo also told me that the upcoming album is going to be faster and more aggressive than The Art of a Maniac. Tymo never really toured to promote this album, because that tour they planned never happened since it was hindered by COVID. Now, however, the band have planned to finally make this tour to promote The Art of a Maniac. So if you get the opportunity to see Tymo live during this tour, I would strongly encourage you to do so. But the idea of this tour could also be a hint that it might take a while until the next album will be released. If they're going to tour to promote The Art of a Maniac first, and this tour isn't actually announced yet as far as I know, that suggests to me that it might take a while until the next album will be announced and released. Because it's kind of like, I think that they would probably, make the tour for The Art of a Maniac, complete that tour before releasing the upcoming album, because I can imagine that when the band released the upcoming album, they would probably want to focus on promoting the new album and focusing on that album, and not really touring with The Art of a Maniac, meanwhile also releasing the upcoming album. I'm not really sure if that would make super much sense to me. So I believe that they will finish this tour and then maybe we will have the upcoming album. But again, there's no date announced yet, so I would definitely encourage you to keep your eyes open for when this album will be released, because I have a great feeling about it. So definitely something I would recommend keeping your eyes out for. These are my thoughts and comments about the band, but now I'd like to hear your thoughts. What do you think about Tymo? Do you have a favorite song by this band? If so, which one? When do you think that the upcoming album will be released? What new subjects do you think Tymo will write about on the upcoming album? Let us know in the YouTube comments or on social media. We have now reached the end of this episode. It means a lot to me that you have been listening all the way to the end. I really appreciate that. If you want to support us, great ways of doing so are subscribing on YouTube, as well as following on Spotify, Facebook and Instagram. And while you're on Spotify, feel free to also rate the podcast, as well as generally liking, commenting and sharing. All of this can be done very quickly, very easily, and completely free. But it would really help the podcast and the bands we verbalize. We would be very thankful. We will be back to verbalize again next week.